My name is Lynn Mason, and I am 29 years old. Last Saturday should have been my wedding day. Instead, I'm sitting on my couch with a refunded honeymoon voucher and a story people will swear I embellished for dramatic effect. I wish I had. Rewind 3 weeks. Jordan, my boyfriend, my almost forever, was planning his bachelor party. Jordan is the kind of man who makes a calendar out of his future. Color-coded goals, quarterly check-ins, a man who loves order because order always loved him back. He works at a firm with a dress code for Fridays and a secret handshake for promotions. He is charming the way a door is, easy to open, hard to close. "Babe," he said that night, sitting too straight on our couch, "there's one rule for the party. No phones, no recording. What happens that night dies that night." He said it like a toast. Then he said it again the next morning over coffee, casual as steam. And once more, a week later, when I asked if he wanted me to leave snacks in the fridge for when he got home. "No phones, no recordings," he smiled. "The guys will be idiots. Nothing I'd want archived." I wanted to laugh. I wanted to ask, what sort of idiots need 3 rehearsals for a boundary? Instead, I told myself it was corporate paranoia bleeding into his personal life. His firm lives on optics. Maybe he didn't want some sloshed groomsman tagging him in a video where he murdered Mr. Brightside on a sticky stage. But then came Astrid. If you're wondering, yes, that Astrid. The ex-girlfriend who insists she's now a friend. The kind who appears wherever the temperature is warmest. She and Jordan dated in their early 20s. She has a laugh that insists you admire it and a talent for being the loudest whisper in any room. We were at couples game night. Someone dragged us into Never Have I Ever, and after too many sips and exactly the wrong kind of attention, Astrid wiggled her eyebrows and chirped, "Never have I ever hired entertainment so exclusive it comes with NDAs." The room went bright with the kind of silence that hears everything. Jordan's face did something I'd never seen it do. He froze, then smiled too widely. "Astrid," he said carefully, "that was your cousin's birthday, remember?" "Right," she said, already 3 shots deep. "The other party, not yours." Her eyes flicked to me, gauging, testing. Later, when we cleaned up the bottles and optimism, Jordan kissed my temple and asked if I was okay. I said sure. He said it again. No phones, no recordings. I said okay. The words tasted like a coin. Here is where I admit something I'm not proud of. For 2 days, I tried to be the cool girl. The one who trusts because trust is hot. The one who's above suspicion because suspicion is messy. The one who knows Astrid will be Astrid and men will be men. And nothing important will happen if you tell yourself nothing important will happen. Then a stubborn, quiet part of me. The part that stacked my mother's court notices into binders when I was 14. The part that learned boundaries the hard way, stood up. I didn't call a friend. I didn't stalk anyone's Instagram. I did something boring and adult. I hired a private investigator. He called himself Hank, the kind of older guy who looks like he's eaten cynicism for breakfast since 1987. "Bachelor gigs are 50-50, he said, when I told him everything. "Half the time it's just karaoke and regret. The other half is why my nephew has a nicer car than I do." "That's not comforting," I said. Wasn't trying to be. Flat 500. I'll have someone inside within an hour after they arrive. Photos, video if needed. You won't be using their phones, so the no recordings rule is irrelevant to me. "How?" I asked. "If they take everyone's phones, we don't use theirs." "You mean—" He smiled without warmth. "Leave that to me." Friday came with a nervous system. Jordan shaved, whistled, kissed me like a promise he didn't have time to keep. "Don't wait up," he grinned, boyish in a way that made me want to skip the part where men grow older but not up. His friends arrived with noise and cologne. Astrid's text pinged on his lock screen. "Have fun, legend." He turned his phone face down like he always did when I could read it. I pretended not to notice. After they left, I stood in our kitchen and stared at the little pile of quiet they left behind. Coasters, a forgotten cufflink, the ring box we'd opened and closed like a theater curtain. I put the ring box back in the drawer. Then I put it back in the light. I couldn't decide which felt like hope. At 9:12 p.m., Hank texted from an unknown number. This is H. All set. At 11:47 p.m., you need to see this before he gets home. 8 a.m. tomorrow. 3rd Street Coffee. Bring yourself. Sleep came like a dare I couldn't accept. I lay awake and listened to the apartment recalibrate, ticking and settling in the false peace of night. Somewhere in the city, the man I loved was celebrating. In my head, I rehearsed what trusting women say to themselves. He'll be fine. He'll drink too much. He'll come home with a silly story about a silly dare and a plastic crown. It won't matter. It won't matter because you are getting married in 6 days. It won't matter because love chooses not to keep score. At 7:52 a.m., I stood outside 3rd Street Coffee with my palms sweating into the paper cup. Hank sat in the corner like a warning no one reads, a laptop open, eyes steady. When he saw me, he closed the door of his face and opened it again, like he'd practiced being gentle. I'm sorry, he said, already sorry. There are moments you think will split your life into before and after, but there's always a half second beforehand where you could still choose the other story. Before I sat down, before he turned the screen, before the audio. I sat. He turned. A private back room, upscale club, too clean, too curated, the kind of place that charges extra for discretion. Jordan in a sash his friends definitely bought ironically. 7 men around him, already sweating joy. And her. She wasn't what I expected. Not a cartoon, not a punchline. She moved like gravity would be rude to interfere. When she leaned into Jordan, he didn't lean away. When she kissed him, he didn't hesitate. When she took his hand and he followed, the room blurred in a way cameras understand, but hearts don't. The video cut, hallway, hotel logo, the kind of carpeting that's seen more secrets than weddings. Jordan. The woman. His hand at her back like muscle memory. A key card. A door. 2 hours in the dead middle of the night. The elevator shuddering open like a witness. There's audio, Hank said low. He pressed play. Laughter. The room before the room. Jordan's voice. Unmistakable, because I know the way his vowels land when he's too confident. Last chance to be with someone who actually keeps up, he said. A chorus of oofs and cheers. Astrid. Get it out of your system, golden boy. Tomorrow you can be Lynn's perfect husband. Then softer, someone, maybe Jordan, maybe a friend. Lynn's sweet, but she's safe. The word landed like a paper cut, small and mean and bleeding anyway. Is this even legal? I asked, because a woman in shock reaches for rules. Recording in a private venue with employee consent, Hank said. Gray, not black. The hallway footage is from hotel security. My nephew. You didn't source it. I showed it to you. What you do next is your call. Next, the after, the other story. I paid him. I walked home through a city that suddenly had too many windows. I opened our door and stood in the doorway like an orphan at the edge of a generous house. I touched the ring box, and my fingers didn't know whether to be gentle or clean. He came home at noon. A little puffy, a little golden. He kissed my forehead. It was tame, he said. Just drinks. Just dancing. He pulled out a staged photo, matching pajamas in a rental kitchen, cucumber slices on their eyes, a joke spa night. Astrid smiling like a knife with lipstick. Looks cute, I said. My voice belonged to a woman who could watch a building fall and ask about the weather. 6 days until the wedding. 4 until the rehearsal dinner. A lifetime until tonight. At 2:03 p.m., I called Richard. Can you and Diane come over? I said. I need to show you something about your son. When they arrived, Diane held my hand like it was easily breakable, which felt fair. I put the laptop on the coffee table. We watched without pausing. Diane cried softly, like she'd been practicing for years. Richard stared out the window while the audio rolled, then turned back to the screen as if it might apologize. The wedding is off, he said, voice careful, soldier still. But we won't tip our hand. Diane flinched. Richard, publicly? Actions have consequences, he said, looking at me, not at his wife. He made his in private. We'll make ours where the truth can be seen. Outside, the afternoon kept pretending it was normal. Inside, I nodded once and felt the day split cleanly. Hank's text from that morning was right. I did need to see it before he came home, because now I knew exactly what to do when everyone else did. I learned that grief has a thermostat. The body, mercifully, refuses to let you burn forever. It cycles you, shock, cold, a fever of rage, then back to numb. Repeat. The afternoon after Richard and Diane left, I folded my hands over my stomach like I was trying to keep some small animal from escaping. I watched the light crawl across the wall until it forgot my name. At 5:11 p.m., my phone buzzed. Hank. Hank. You've got the originals. Keep duplicates off your personal cloud. Don't forward. Hand to hand if you share. Me. Understood. Hank. One more thing. If he tries the "this is illegal" angle, employee wore the wire with owner permission. Your father-in-law can back you. Hotel footage is routine security. You didn't procure it. You reacted to it. Me. Why are you telling me like you've said this before? Hank. Because I have. I stared at the thread until the bubbles stopped pretending they might say more. Then I did something simple. I opened the kitchen drawer and took out the ring box. It was heavier than its size should allow, like guilt or gold. I held it under the faucet and turned the water on. Not enough to damage the ring, just enough to hear the hollow box fill and empty, fill and empty. I wasn't trying to ruin anything. I wanted to know how it sounded to drown quietly. Jordan got home early, showered long, and emerged smelling like hotel soap and someone else's shampoo pretending to be eucalyptus. He padded around our apartment in a soft t-shirt that made him look young and harmless. Rehearsal dinner's at 6 on Thursday, I said without turning. I asked the restaurant to set up a projector. I want to practice vows with visuals. He laughed, relieved. Who are you, Scorsese? You nervous? Nervous doesn't survive in me, I said, and surprised us both with the truth in it. He crossed the kitchen, kissed the top of my hair. I'm lucky, he murmured. You're so steady. Safe. He almost said safe. I tasted iron. He pulled away, caged my face in his hands. Friday was tame, he offered, unprompted. The guys were stupid. We did karaoke. Astrid was there for like 10 minutes and left because the place was lame. I didn't want to tell you she came at all. Didn't want you to feel weird. She makes herself present, I said. That's her hobby. He grinned at that, pleased with my edge. That's my girl, he said, and I wondered what the phrase meant to him when he used it on me and the dancer a few hours apart. I slept in pieces that night, a jigsaw jutting out of itself. In the smallest hours, I sat on the bathroom tile with the laptop open just enough to be a confession and watched 15 seconds of the clip again, then closed it like it might bite. I kept thinking of the way he followed her into the hall, how familiarity announces itself through posture. You don't teach your hand to sit on a stranger's lower back like that. You remember. By morning, the throbbing behind my eyes had turned clerical. I made a list. Return dress. Pause. Tell my mother? No. She will make it about her. Find attorney? Maybe. Ask Hank for referral. Practice face in mirror. Neutral. Not martyr, not saint. Keep routine. He must not see the plan coming. At 9:30 a.m., I called Hank again. Hypothetical, I said. If I needed an attorney to swat a nuisance suit, who would you recommend? Jeremy Feld. He collects men who think consequences are a prank and turns them into case law. I wrote the name down. Do women ever hire you to catch their own bachelorettes? I asked, unable to stop myself. Sometimes, he said, but it's rarer. Different flavors, same ice cream. People don't cheat because parties exist. They cheat because they're the kind of person who needs parties to excuse what they've already decided. Did you always talk in proverbs? Only when I know the person on the other end already knows the answer. He paused. You sure you want to do this at the rehearsal dinner? I'm sure I don't want to walk down an aisle toward a man I can't trust, I said. Everything else is logistics. Jordan spent Monday trying on voices. In the morning, contrite. By lunch, breezy. At dinner, attentive. He set my favorite dish in front of me, garlic noodles with too much butter, then watched like a dog who'd set down a bird and wanted to be praised for the effort, not blamed for the blood. Eat, he urged. You've been quiet since Friday. Wedding nerves, I said, and twirled the noodles with the steadiness of a surgeon about to remove something malignant. He searched my face. You know I love you. Love is a verb, I said. I'll see it. He flinched like I'd thrown something. That night, I typed the rehearsal dinner run of show on a shared doc. Welcome toast. Parent toasts. Lynn's vow practice. Jordan's vow practice. I added a final bullet. A surprise montage. I did not specify content. I did not sleep. Tuesday brought testing. Astrid called under the pretense of groomsmen gifts. I thought we locked those down, I said. We did, she sing-songed. I was just thinking we should add a little custom engraving. Last-minute flair. Unless, are last-minute changes making you anxious? She let the question dangle, sticky and sugared. I love last-minute changes, I said. They reveal character. A beat. Then cautious. You okay? You feel tense. It's funny, I said. You always think women feel, I think. She barked a laugh too bright. So Friday, she blurted. The guys were silly, harmless. Don't be weird about it, okay? The rule was no phones for everyone's privacy. I mean everyone's. You know how that goes. Privacy is nice, I said. Shame is private too. It needs the dark. A careful inhale. Lynn, she said, voice dipping into an old intimacy she had no right to. Don't sabotage your own happiness because you're afraid. Jordan would never... The word never arrived like an ambulance and drove straight through a red light. Thank you for your concern, I said, and hung up. In the evening, Jordan tried a new script. I've been thinking, he said, leaning in the kitchen doorway like an advertisement for apologies. About boundaries, about trust. He swallowed. I didn't like the idea of you seeing videos of me, of us, being idiots. That's why I pushed the no phones thing, not because of anything bad. Idiots are my favorite animal, I said. They're honest. He blinked at that, then smiled. I love when you talk like a poet. It's hot. I stared at him long enough to watch him get uncomfortable inside his own charm. You cooked last night. I'll do tonight, I said, and set a pot on the stove like a period at the end of whatever that was. When the pasta boiled over, he wrapped his arms around my waist. You're my person, he whispered into my neck, his breath sweet with the memory of someone else's lip gloss pretending to be mint. I watched my hands turn off the burner. I watched myself lean back against him because the body is habit's accomplice. Then I stepped forward, 1 foot of air between us that would stay air. Wednesday was the soundtrack of paranoia. He forgot his phone and doubled back. He peeked at my iPad, at the dock, at my texts, casual as trespass. When he borrowed my charger, he scrolled too long in the glow. I let him. My coordination with Richard lived on a burner Hank had handed me in a paper bag like it contained a goldfish. Midday, a message from Richard. Restaurant has projector. Confirmed Thursday, 6 p.m. We'll speak after you. Diane understands. She's braver than she thinks. I stared at his final sentence until it became a prayer. At 4, Jordan tried tenderness as strategy. He put his head in my lap on the couch and looked up at me like I was an answer. I can't wait to marry you, he said. After Saturday, everything gets easier. You think the wedding makes us different, I said. It only makes us visible. He exhaled through his nose, half laugh, half surrender. You're doing that thing again. What thing? Turning sentences into mirrors. I wanted to tell him I had been a mirror for him long enough, that my love had been a light he performed in, not a place he lived. I wanted to say, I know what you did, Jordan. I wanted to ask if he loved the woman in the hotel room, or if he loved the story of himself that she offered him, the one where he's still 22 and consequence is a rumor. But then I thought of Diane's hands shaking over the laptop, and I closed my mouth. Instead, I stroked his hair like the past was still an option, and waited for Thursday. People think the worst part of betrayal is the moment you see the proof. It isn't. The worst part is continuing to move through the hours afterward as if proof hasn't altered gravity. You still have to floss. You still have to answer emails. You still have to set an alarm, choose a dress, write a toast. The world demands performance even when your insides have emptied out like a theater after a matinee. That night, I wrote vows I knew I wouldn't say. I promise to love you when it's easy, to confront you when it's not, to refuse to be the version of myself that asks nothing so you can give nothing. Then I printed them, slid them into a folder labeled with my name, and put the folder in my bag. On Thursday morning, Jordan woke before me, humming. He ironed his shirt with care, the steam rising like a ghost. We were both pretending wasn't there. He brought me coffee just the way I like it, black with a reckoning. Tonight will be perfect, he said. Perfect, I repeated. The word clicked in my mouth like a safety being taken off. At 5:43 p.m., outside the restaurant, I stood with Diane. She squeezed my shoulder. You don't have to do this, she whispered. I already did, I said. He did the rest. We went in. The room was warm with candles and certainty. 40 faces turned toward us like sunflowers. Welcome, I said into the microphone, my voice steady and new. Let's practice telling the truth. There's a strange kind of electricity that runs through your veins when you know something no one else in the room does. It's not quite adrenaline, not quite terror. It's both, braided together. Thursday afternoon, on the way to the rehearsal dinner, I could feel it under my skin like static. Every candle, every polished glass waiting at the restaurant would be lit beneath a fuse only I and Richard knew existed. Jordan hummed along to the radio beside me, tapping the steering wheel. He'd chosen the playlist. Upbeat, nostalgic, safe. The kind of music that pretends time doesn't move. He was trying to script a mood, like a director pushing his actors into a rom-com montage. My hands stayed folded in my lap, fingers pressed so tightly they left crescents. You okay? He asked, glancing over with a smile that was too rehearsed. Fine, I said. Excited to practice. He laughed, shaking his head. You and your structure. It's a dinner, not a board meeting. Structure keeps chaos honest, I murmured, mostly to myself. He didn't catch it, or pretended not to. Earlier that morning, Richard had called. His voice had the steady cadence of a man who'd commanded people before. We'll let you open with vows, he said. Then I'll take it from there. Diane's worried it's cruel, but Lynn... He paused, like he needed the weight of my name to land. It's the only way. Private confrontation would give him room to twist. Public forces clarity. I understand, I said. And I did. There was no satisfaction in this, only necessity. If Jordan was going to paint me as paranoid or insecure, there needed to be 40 witnesses who saw exactly what had happened. Diane came on the line, her voice soft and trembling. Are you sure? He's my son. I can't reconcile the boy I raised with the man in that video. You don't have to, I said gently. You just have to stop protecting him from what he chose, she sniffed. I suppose mothers forget their children are adults, that choices aren't ours anymore. They never were, I said, and for a moment we both sat in the quiet acknowledgement of women who've lived with men's decisions carved into our lives. Back in the car, Jordan squeezed my knee. I've been thinking, he said carefully, as if unveiling a confession. About Friday. The guys did hire dancers. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to hurt you, but it was just dancing. Dumb fun, that's all. He looked at me like he expected forgiveness to arrive immediately, neatly packaged. Just dancing, I repeated, watching the streetlights blur past. Yes, he said quickly. God, yes. Astrid thought it would be hilarious. I didn't want to be the buzzkill groom, but you believe me, right? I turned to him, smiled faintly, and said, Sure. Relief flooded his face like water breaking through a dam. He exhaled, almost laughing. You're incredible. Honestly, you're the best. Those guys were gross anyway. Just muscles, no substance. Not like you. The audacity made me want to laugh. Instead, I stared out the window, the city rolling by, each passing building holding a truth he didn't deserve. The trickle truth didn't end there. By mid-afternoon, Astrid tried her own reconnaissance. She called me, her voice bubbling too brightly. "Hey, Lynn, just checking on the groomsmen gifts. We all good?" "All set weeks ago," I replied flatly. Right, totally. Chloe, I mean Jordan, was worried you might be acting strange. Did someone say something about the party?" "What would they say?" A pause, then too quickly. "Nothing. People talk. But nothing happened, of course." "I didn't say anything did," I said coolly. Silence stretched, awkward and brittle, before she hung up. I sat in the quiet afterward, staring at my phone, and thought, "You're scrambling. You already know the ground beneath you is breaking." By the time we arrived at the restaurant, Jordan had switched tactics again. He became affectionate, hand at my lower back, whispering compliments. "You look stunning," he said. "Tonight, let's just focus on us. Tomorrow the chaos can begin. Tonight is ours." He was love-bombing, layering sweetness, thick enough to suffocate me. It almost worked once. It didn't now. The restaurant's private room glowed warmly with candles, the hum of chatter rising as family and friends settled. 40 people, bridesmaids in jewel-toned dresses, groomsmen in pressed suits, relatives leaning in to swap stories, all unaware that the evening was about to split their perception of Jordan in half. I touched the folder in my bag, the vows I wouldn't be reading, and steadied my breath. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't spectacle. This was sunlight, and sunlight was survival. Richard caught my eye from across the room, gave the smallest nod. Diane sat beside him, pale, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She was bracing for impact. Jordan leaned down and kissed my cheek. "Ready, love?" "More than ever," I said. He grinned, oblivious. He thought tonight was rehearsal. He didn't know it was revelation. There are nights you know will splinter into memory, that will never leave the people who were there. The rehearsal dinner became one of those nights. The room was dressed for celebration. Polished cutlery, flickering candles, champagne flutes lined like soldiers waiting for orders. 40 people gathered, friends, family, co-workers. My dress felt heavier than fabric, as if it had absorbed the weight of what was about to come. I stood first, as planned. My voice carried easily, measured, calm. "Thank you, everyone, for being here. Tonight is about practice. Practice toasts, practice vows, and practice, above all, honesty, because marriage doesn't survive without it." Polite laughter rippled, thin but warm. Jordan smiled at me, unaware of the double edge in my words. He probably thought I was nervous, that my speech about honesty was quaint. He squeezed my hand under the table. When I sat, Richard stood. He straightened his suit jacket, his military past visible in the way his posture commanded the room. "Before we toast to the future, I thought it would be nice to revisit the past," he announced. "A little montage of Jordan growing up. His mother and I wanted to surprise him." Jordan's eyes softened. "Dad," he chuckled, embarrassed. "You didn't." Richard gestured to the back. The lights dimmed. The projector screen flickered alive. First, baby photos. Jordan in a crib, face messy with birthday cake. Next, his awkward teenage years, braces glinting in the sun. Then, college, beaming in a graduation cap. People chuckled, clapped lightly. Jordan's cheeks pinked. He glanced at me, and I returned the smallest smile. My stomach was stone. And then the footage shifted. The bachelor party. The private club room appeared on screen. Jordan in his groom-to-be sash, laughing with his friends. The dancer, Marina, stepping into frame, pulling him close. The laughter in the room faltered, thinning into silence. On screen, Jordan kissed her. Not tentative, not a mistake, enthusiastic, hands gripping her waist like possession. "Turn it off," Jordan shouted instantly, leaping halfway to his feet. This isn't, but Richard's voice cut through, iron hard. "Sit down, son." Gasps swirled around the room. Someone dropped a fork. A bridesmaid covered her mouth with both hands. "Deep fake!" Astrid suddenly cried, her voice shrill. "This is fake! Some psycho edited this!" But the footage continued. damning in its clarity. The hotel corridor now. The key card. Jordan and Marina entering the room. 2 hours later, him leaving, adjusting his belt. Diane was crying openly now, shaking her head as if denial might rewind time. The audio rolled next. Jordan's own voice filled the room. Last chance to be with someone who actually keeps up. Lynn's sweet, but she's safe. A collective murmur of disbelief tore through the guests. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Another, "He said that?" Astrid sputtered again. It's someone edited his voice." But her conviction cracked. Everyone could hear it was him. Richard let it play for 15 seconds more before raising a hand. "That's enough." The screen went dark. The silence that followed was not empty. It was crowded, thick, alive with judgment. Richard's jaw clenched. His voice was steady but lethal. "The wedding is canceled, effective immediately." Jordan turned to me, face pale, sweat shining on his forehead. "Lynn, please. Baby, it didn't mean—" "Explain what?" I asked quietly. "The hotel? The dancer? Or the part where you called me safe?" He flinched like I'd struck him. Across the room, someone whispered to their partner, "Safe? Did he really say that?" Others stared, uncomfortable, pitying, or outraged. Astrid's phone was out, fingers flying across the screen. Damage control already underway. One of the groomsmen muttered, "Holy shit," and downed his whiskey in one gulp. Jordan's younger cousin half rose. "Uncle Richard, come on. This is humiliating him in front of everyone." Richard's voice cut like glass. He humiliated himself. "This is consequences." The room fractured into noise. Bridesmaids defending Jordan. "It was just a mistake." While my maid of honor hissed back, "He cheated. Don't you dare downplay it." An elderly aunt clasped her rosary, whispering prayers in Italian. Through it all, I sat still, spine straight, hands folded on my lap. I had imagined screaming, imagined rage. Instead, I felt a strange serenity. I was no longer trying to hold him together. He was unraveling all on his own. Jordan lunged toward me, mascara of desperation smeared across his words. "Please, Lynn, I love you. It was just sex. It meant nothing." "Then it should be easy to live without it," I said, standing. My chair scraped loudly against the wood. Astrid's voice screeched, desperate. "You're really going to humiliate him like this? What kind of woman are you?" Before I could answer, Derek, the same groomsman who muttered earlier, stood too. "The kind who doesn't marry cheaters." His voice was blunt, tired, like truth often is. The room went still again. Jordan's eyes darted from face to face, searching for rescue, but most people looked away. A few stared openly, disappointment etched deep. Diane sobbed harder. Richard's shoulders stayed rigid, his stare unmovable. I lifted my bag, placed my vows on the table in front of Jordan, and said softly, "Read them if you want to know what I was willing to give you. Then remember you traded it for 2 hours in a hotel." And with that, I walked out. Behind me, the room erupted. Arguments, crying, chairs scraping, Astrid's shrill denial clashing against Richard's barked commands. Jordan's voice followed, breaking and raw. "Lynn, please." But the door closed and the noise dimmed. Outside, the night air was cold, clean. I inhaled it like oxygen after nearly drowning. Inside, the life I thought I was about to enter burned down in front of 40 witnesses, and I did not look back. The morning that should have been my wedding day, I woke up to silence. Not Jordan's breathing beside me, not the rustle of tuxedo bags, or the hum of curling irons. Just silence, and a phone buzzing itself into exhaustion. 47 missed texts, 17 voicemails. Half from Jordan, the rest split between Astrid and unknown numbers that I guessed were his groomsmen or cousins. I scrolled through a few at random. "Please, Lynn, we can fix this. Counseling. Anything." "You're throwing us away over one mistake. You wanted an out, didn't you? This was your excuse all along. Don't ruin me. Please." By noon, the tone shifted. Bargaining curdled into anger. "You humiliated me. Do you feel proud? Everyone's talking about you being controlling. Astrid says she'll tell people how you stalked us. You're insane, Lynn." I put the phone down. The words had the cadence of a man drowning, thrashing at whatever he could reach. The fallout spread quickly. On social media, Astrid spun her version. I was a paranoid fiancé who hired a spy because of trust issues. She called me abusive, controlling, desperate. Her post gained traction in our city's gossip circuits. Screenshots flew. But then Derek, the groomsman who had spoken up at the rehearsal, commented beneath her post. He uploaded the very texts Jordan had sent me afterward. The apologies, the admissions. If Lynn's controlling, Derek wrote, then why did your boy admit he cheated in writing? Astrid deleted her post, but the screenshots were already circulating. Monday brought a sharper blow. Jordan's company called me, not directly, but through the grapevine. He'd boasted about the wedding to everyone at work. Extra leave had been approved for the honeymoon. When the rehearsal dinner video leaked, someone in the room had recorded Richard's reveal. It landed on his boss's desk within hours. The firm had a strict morality clause. No illegal drugs, no public scandals, no conduct that could damage the company's reputation. They didn't fire him outright, but he was demoted, his bonus revoked, and mandatory professional conduct training ordered. He'd built his image on being untouchable. Now he was reduced to whisper fodder at water coolers. By midweek, a thicker envelope arrived in my mailbox. A lawsuit. Jordan Carter versus Lynn Mason. Claim. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Invasion of privacy. Damages sought. $50,000. I laughed, a sound that startled me with its edge. I forwarded it to Jeremy Feld, the attorney Hank had recommended. He called within the hour, amused. She cheated on you, admitted it, and she's suing you, Jeremy said. This will be thrown out faster than a cigarette in a hurricane. I'll also file to recover your legal fees. True to his word, the judge dismissed the suit in minutes. Jordan was ordered to cover my attorney's bill, $3,500. Richard later texted me that Jordan had begged him for the money. Richard refused. He called Diane a failed mother, Richard wrote. We're done protecting him. But not everyone turned away. Some people surprised me. 3 nights later, my phone pinged with a message from an unfamiliar account. It was Marina, the dancer from the video. Lynn, I owe you an apology. I didn't know he was engaged until afterward. He said you two had an arrangement, that it was an open thing. I wouldn't have touched him otherwise. She sent screenshots. Jordan, feeding her lines. She's cool with it. It's just one last hurrah. She knows I'd never really leave her. Then Marina added something else. Astrid's done this before. She hires us for last chance parties. Married women, engaged women. Encourages hookups. Takes a cut if we close the deal. I thought it was trashy but harmless. Now I see it's worse. My pulse slowed. Astrid wasn't just complicit. She was orchestrating. A side hustle built on infidelity. I forwarded the screenshots anonymously to Jordan's firm. Astrid worked there too. Within a week, she was encouraged to seek opportunities elsewhere. The days blurred. Every morning brought new ripples. Jordan's extended family divided, some defending him. Everyone makes mistakes. Others disgusted. Friends picked sides. My own inbox filled with messages from women who had endured similar betrayals, thanking me for exposing him publicly. And through it all, Jordan flailed. He showed up at my gym, at my coffee shop, always with new friends, always loud enough for me to hear him call me a stalker and a psycho. His attempts to smear me looked desperate to anyone who paid attention, but desperation can still be dangerous, so I documented screenshots, dates, times, evidence not for revenge, but for protection, because men like Jordan rarely collapse quietly. They claw on their way down. One night, as I was brushing my teeth, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. For a moment, I thought it would be another tirade, another accusation. Instead, it was simple. Lynn, I just wanted you to know you're not crazy. What you saw is what happened. What he did is who he is. It was from Emma, Jordan's cousin, the one who had gasped during the video at the rehearsal. Then she added, Grandma cut him out of her will, replaced him with the church. She said she won't reward betrayal. Thought you'd want to know. I sat on the edge of my bed, toothbrush forgotten in my hand, and exhaled. For the first time in weeks, the air felt a little less heavy, but the calm never lasted long. The next weekend, Jordan escalated. He showed up at my apartment with Astrid and someone else, a man I recognized only from the video, the dancer, Marina's colleague, who had been in the background that night. Jordan puffed his chest, trying to reclaim power. "We need to talk," he announced, barging past my threshold. "No," I said simply, blocking the doorway. He gestured to the man. "Tell her what you told me." The man looked confused, sheepish. "You said she was cool with it, that it was arranged." I stared at Jordan. "Is that really the lie you're hanging on to? That I gave permission for you to betray me?" The man's eyes flicked between us, realization dawning. "Wait, you didn't?" "Of course not," I said coldly. The man muttered, "Damn, I don't do cheating. I'm out." He turned, walked away, got in his car, and left. Jordan's face crumpled. Astrid swore under her breath, and I shut the door in their faces, the lock clicking like punctuation. That night, I realized something. Jordan was unraveling, but not alone. Astrid's schemes were exposed. His family had cut him off. His friends were fracturing. He was flailing in the open, no longer protected by secrets or silence. And me? For the first time, I felt the faintest outline of freedom. But freedom has a price, and Jordan wasn't finished paying. If betrayal is a fire, then aftermath is the smoke. Thick, clinging, impossible to ignore. It seeps into every room, every conversation, every breath. 2 weeks after the rehearsal dinner, Jordan's spiral was no longer whispered, it was public. His firm had demoted him. Astrid had been cut loose, and his reputation was scorched. Instead of retreating, he doubled down. He started showing up where he knew I'd be. The gym, the cafe on 3rd, even the farmer's market on Saturday mornings. He'd always arrive with a small entourage, friends, cousins, sometimes Astrid, loud and theatrical, making sure I heard him call me unstable, controlling, a stalker. His eyes would flick toward me, daring me to react. I never gave him the satisfaction. I documented dates, times, screenshots of his posts, overheard words. Jeremy, my attorney, told me to keep stacking evidence. "Men like him burn bridges," Jeremy said, "but they also like to circle back and try to set them on fire twice." The escalation came one Thursday night. My neighbor knocked at my door, worried. "Lynn, I think someone keyed your car." We went down together. It wasn't my car. It was the same model, parked 2 spots over. Deep scratches along the side, jagged, furious. The owner came down minutes later, furious and confused. Security cameras caught it clearly. Jordan, red-eyed, staggering, dragging his keys along the paint. He thought it was my car. Police were called. He was arrested for vandalism, charged with property damage. The look on his face as they cuffed him was half rage, half disbelief, like the world was supposed to keep cushioning his fall. Richard called me the next morning. His voice was heavy, older. "Lynn," he said, "I'm sorry, for all of it, for raising a son capable of this, for putting you through the kind of humiliation no one deserves. Diane cried all night. She asked me if we failed him. I told her maybe we failed to see who he really was." "You didn't fail," I said softly. "He chose." There was a pause. "You're still welcome here, at our home, at family gatherings. You're our daughter in all but blood." The words landed deeper than I expected, because for weeks I'd felt like an orphan cut loose from a life I had almost stepped into. Hearing Richard claim me anyway was a kind of quiet rescue. Meanwhile, Jordan's life kept contracting. His friends thinned out. His relatives stopped answering calls. Even Astrid, ever loyal to chaos, pulled back when her own job prospects dried up. The narrative he tried to sell, me as the villain, crumbled under the weight of his own actions. Then, almost predictably, came the final ploy, pregnancy. A mutual friend messaged me in disbelief. "Jordan's telling people you're pregnant, that you're terminating because of him." I laughed out loud. We haven't touched each other in over a month. Later, Emma, his cousin, confirmed the truth. She'd helped him move out and found a negative test in his trash, still in the box. Lies layered on lies, Desperate scaffolding on a collapsing house. The rock bottom came 3 weeks later. He showed up at Richard and Diane's house at 2 a.m., drunk, pounding on the door. Diane told me later that he was shouting about being their son, about having rights. Richard had to call the police, his own son. When they arrived, Jordan took a swing at one of the officers. He was arrested again, this time for public intoxication and assault. Richard bailed him out, but only on the condition that he enter rehab. He lasted 4 days. "Full of addicts," he complained, walking out. "I'd just like to party." That was the last straw. Diane finally broke. She called me crying. "What happened to him, Lynn? This isn't the boy I raised." I didn't have an answer. Some questions don't deserve answers. They deserve boundaries. I tried to move forward. Therapy became a standing appointment. My therapist told me I wasn't crazy for still hearing his voice in my head. "It lingers," she said. "That's the punishment of betrayal. But it fades too, once you learn it isn't yours to carry." Slowly, my life found shape again. I joined my hiking group more often. One woman, Pam, became a regular companion. She knew the whole story. She found it both tragic and absurd, the kind of story that could only happen when arrogance meets opportunity. "The saddest part," she said on our third hike together, "is that he had everything. A good woman, a loving family, a solid career, and he traded it for 2 hours in a hotel." 2 hours, I corrected softly. Exactly 2. We both laughed, though mine was more bitter than hers. One afternoon, Richard and Diane dropped by with a small box. Inside was my engagement ring. "We don't want it," Richard said. "You bought it with your love. He squandered it. It's yours now." I stared at the diamond, its light too sharp. "I don't want it either." "Then sell it," Richard said gently. "Turn misery into something useful." So I did. I sold it, bought myself a new laptop, and donated the rest to a women's shelter. It felt right, a ring that once promised a life, now funding someone else's escape. Months passed. Jordan pled out his vandalism and assault charges, probation, mandatory therapy. He left the state, moving in with an aunt, the only family still speaking to him. His social media disappeared. Astrid got engaged to a man who didn't know her past. Emma told me the family barely mentioned his name anymore, and me? My life grew quiet. Not the suffocating silence of betrayal, but the gentle hush of peace. I learned to breathe without waiting for the other shoe to drop. I learned to laugh at small things again. Pam teaching me how to cook with more than salt. Richard's dry humor when he called to check in. Diane sending me recipes scribbled in her neat teacher's handwriting. Sometimes people ask if I regret exposing him so publicly. My answer is always the same: no. He exposed himself. I simply refused to cover it up. He destroyed himself. I just refused to go down with him. The only regret I carry is not seeing the truth sooner. But maybe I did see it and chose to look away. Love can do that. It blinds you to what's already there, not anymore. Now I look clearly at myself, at the life ahead, at the peace I earned by walking away. Because betrayal is not the end of the story. The refusal to be destroyed by it is, and that's where my story begins again.